Hi friend, welcome to the Quiet Connections podcast. Do you feel anxious and not good enough in social situations? Feel like you're weird, broken or don't fit in? You are not alone. Join Hayley and Stacey on a journey to quiet confidence, picking up key insights to help you feel more calm and confident, so you can finally speak up, join in and feel like you belong too.
So today we're going to talk about something that is really widespread amongst students, but very hidden, and you are very likely to experience it, but you may not know what it is. And if you feel this way, you're probably going to think that you are entirely alone. So today we want to talk about that intense fear that we get in social and performance situations, like talking up in class, doing presentations, even just socializing at the lunch break. And we can respond to this by often avoiding the situation as much as possible. And in those moments where we cannot avoid the situation, we end up being really fearful and panicking in the moment, before and even after. So we have both had our experiences of feeling very socially anxious throughout college and throughout much of our lives. So Stacey, what was your college experience like?
Yeah, so I remember like the first day of starting college, or actually even like I think the week leading up to starting college, of having just that horrible feeling of I don't know who I'm going to meet, I don't know what to expect, feeling really scared that like all the people in my class are going to hate me, feeling like I wasn't going to be able to make any new friends. At the same time, I knew I was going to college with like a small group of friends that I had from school, which really felt like a security blanket for me. But I also recognized that like I wasn't always going to be with them because we were going to have different classes. And there was just this intense fear of like, I'm going to show up to this class and I'm not going to be able to speak to anyone. And like, I said, there was a fear of like that I was going to end up feeling really lonely and like an outsider, and as though I didn't really fit in with the other like people in my class. There was also a fear that like of not knowing what the teachers were going to be like, and are they going to be like really horrible and critical, or like are they going to like what's it like point you out, or you know kind of like put you on the spot a lot. So there was a lot of fears, a lot of fear around not knowing what to expect, not knowing who I was going to meet, fears of I'm going to be judged, I'm going to be criticized, I'm going to make a fool out of myself, and also then in addition to that as well, that like I wasn't going to be any good at the subjects that I had chosen, and that everyone else was going to be better than me, and I was going to just really suck on every single level. And actually by not being perhaps like as knowledgeable or as good as other people in my class like at the subjects, that would mean that I was less than them, and that was a really big fear for me, because obviously I wanted to be seen as someone who was capable and competent and knowledgeable, and particularly like with the subjects that I was doing at uni, at college, I wanted to be seen as like this creative artistic person, and that was a huge fear that like I wasn't going to be as good at that as other people in my class. So yeah, lots of fears at college. I remember dropping one of my A levels because it was the only one like the one subject that I had where we had to do presentations, and I had managed to get through one presentation. Managed to get through. It was hard, and then when the next one came up, I was like, no, I'm not doing it. So because that option was there for me to drop an A level and to only do 3 rather than 4, you know, like that part of me that always wanted to avoid uncomfortable situations, like I almost like jumped at that opportunity, despite the fact that actually it was a subject that I really, really enjoyed and that I was actually quite good at. And just that one thing of, I'm gonna have to stand up in front of the class again and share like my perspective and like the reflections that I had made, and the stuff that I knew or that I thought I knew or whatever, like in front of the rest of the class, and that was going to be open to judgment. It was just a big like, I can't do it. That's what it felt like.
Yeah, similar. There was definitely that underlying sense of like, I'm not good enough, and I am like, even though my grades were fairly good, I still felt like I was a failure. Like I was going to get found out. Like I just, like I didn't fit in. So very much the same. And I remember that being with me throughout school, throughout college, and so on. But the way that showed up for me was to try and make myself really small. So I'd sit at the back of the class whenever possible. I would try to avoid presentations at all costs. I remember one day I was like, I cannot get out of this presentation. And I was walking to college and I got so close to college and I was like, I just cannot do this. And I turned around and went home and told them that I'd been sick on the way in. And I ended up having to do that presentation to one member of staff. And it was still just as terrifying as if it was the whole class. And I really, really struggled with it. I struggled with speaking up in class. I struggled with eating in front of people in the canteen, just general socializing, talking to men. There was so much that was really hard for me. And I felt really ashamed that I couldn't do these things, because I would look around and I would think, well, other people seem to manage with ease. Everybody else is confident. What is wrong with me? And so I was trying to hide it and not let people see what was going on.
Yeah.
Which of course lots of us do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That feeling of I need to hide the nerves, I need to hide this anxiety, I need to hide who I am, basically. And
absolutely. Yeah. It's really a fear about showing up and being seen and opening yourself up to judgment. So I thought that I was the only person in the world experiencing this.
Oh yeah, I did too. I was most definitely the only one. Yeah. I think that's very common.
It definitely is. And I think that's because the nature of it, we do try to keep it hidden. People don't talk about it very much. We definitely don't want to share the way that we're feeling. We don't want to open ourselves up to criticism by doing that. But the reality is that it's really, really common. And there was a study done in 2006, I believe, at the University of Plymouth, and they did this study in their university and in their partnership colleges, which includes Cornwall College. And they found that 12% of students experience generalized social anxiety. And this is where it impacts like all aspects of your life. And it can result in lots and lots of avoidance and lots of panic and reduced well-being. But interestingly, they found that almost half of all students experienced non-generalized social anxiety. So that is social anxiety in very specific situations, which most commonly is probably getting up and doing a presentation. And I found this so interesting because when we feel that like we are the only ones going through this, we look around and we see everyone else is confident, everyone else is managing okay, and what we're doing is comparing the way that we feel inside. We're comparing all our internal struggles to that very small piece that someone else is allowing us to see.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's not a fair judgment.
No, not at all. And I found it really reassuring that actually almost 50% of students feel this way too, certainly about presenting or specific situations. So that really made me see that the way I was looking at other people wasn't accurate. It wasn't true. If I'm looking around and seeing everybody apart from me as confident, then I have to be wrong, because almost half of those are not feeling confident.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you as well. And I know, especially like over the last few years, like both myself and you, we've had numerous conversations with other people who also felt really anxious in those performance situations or in social situations in general, and who were also looking around at other people and perceiving them to be more confident than what they were feeling. And I actually think like both of us have had people comment on us and them perceiving us as being more confident than what we actually felt. And I know even back in college that there were a few times where some people had perceived me as being confident and hadn't actually recognized or realized just how anxious I was feeling most of the time. And a lot of that was due to the fact that I would hide the anxiety that I was experiencing through laughing. So if I was in a group of people, I wouldn't say anything. I wasn't contributing to the conversation like at all. But like the way in which I would cope with that would be to laugh and pretend like I was a part of the conversation in some respects. But if someone was then to ask me a question and like the spotlight went on me, I would completely freeze. So there was this kind of like, I suppose, like disconnect between what I was actually feeling and sometimes what was being presented, but then there was also this fear that everyone could actually see how scared I was. And yes, I think it's a really interesting dynamic of how we perceive other people, and it's not always true.
Yeah, definitely. And it's really interesting that we feel like it's not okay to be nervous. It's not okay to show that we're afraid of something. Getting up and doing a presentation is really hard. It's hard for so many people. And yet we tend to think that we just should be able to do this just naturally, even though a lot of the time we're not taught how to do it. We're not taught how to calm those nerves, how to get ourselves out of that freeze response when it's happening. Because the very same thing happened to me whenever I'd just get called upon in class, talking in front of other people even, let alone getting up and doing a presentation. I would find myself in that same freeze response, red-faced, and just unable to get my words out. And if I did choke out any words, they would be in a right muddle.
Yeah, same here. Yeah. And then you have all that criticism that comes afterwards of I've just made such a fool out of myself. And
yeah, and that can keep us awake for months on end.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. And yeah, and likewise, I remember that as well. Like if a teacher asked, like if they had like asked a question and nobody else kind of like responded in the class, which possibly is also another indication that actually other people are feeling nervous and anxious because they don't want to put their hands up and offer their own thoughts or answers. And then the teacher obviously kind of resorts to just picking someone out in the class. Like if that was ever me, well, actually, first of all, I remember if I knew that was going to happen, it was just avoid eye contact with the teacher at all costs. Like do not engage with them and hopefully they won't see me.
Rule number one.
Yeah. Classic tactic. But if it did, which, on occasions it does happen, I would just remember this, like, just this feeling washing over me of like, oh my God, like I can't speak. Like, and they would just sit there, and quite often I would actually just turn around and say, I don't know. Like, even if I did, it was just, I don't know, because like, please take this attention off of me.
Yeah. The shortest answer.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, that might be something to actually look out for as well. Like if you're feeling that way in the class and you're noticing that actually a lot of other people also aren't putting their hands up, or they're not offering their own ideas or their thoughts or things like that, that actually that could be a real strong indication that somebody else might be feeling just as anxious as you are, and perhaps that's an opportunity there to reach out to them, connect with them, or even just to experience that sense of comfort that you to recognize that, okay, I'm not the only person feeling this way.
Yeah, that is a really good point, Stacey, because after setting up Quiet Connections, somebody that I used to go to college with for the second time when I went back to Cornwall College to do my foundation degree, so we were mostly mature students at this point, and someone that was in the class with me came to me and said, oh, you probably remember me as the quietest one in the class. And she shared her story, and I thought, wow, I used to think that she was pretty confident, even maybe a little bit stuck up or something. Because we often have these really common misconceptions about quiet and what it means, and we consider it to be rude or ignorant or just not interested, and it's not like that at all.
Yeah,
so we must always just ask what else can be true.
Yeah, for sure. And again, like those are things that I know other people have kind of like thought about me in the past as well. Like I've had a number of conversations with people who have been like, when I first met you, I thought you were a bitch. And I was like, oh, like I'm like so far from being a bitch. But at the same time, I can almost understand why they might have had that perception. But also like there's that sense of like, we don't question it. Like we just kind of jump to the conclusion that, oh, this person obviously doesn't like me, or and interestingly actually then like what we're seeing is that people are then reflecting it back onto themselves, and like if somebody else is feeling anxious and they're avoiding eye contact with you, or perhaps they're not asking you questions or engaging in conversation with you, that there is every chance that that person feels really anxious in that situation. Perhaps they've got their own insecurities and things that they're feeling uncomfortable about sharing. But interestingly, like we tend to sit there and think that it's all about us, and that it's because this person doesn't like me, it's because I'm boring or I'm not good enough, or so like we end up in these situations where we're all thinking the worst of ourselves, as opposed to questioning actually what else could be going on for everyone around us.
Yeah. So the most important skill that we can bring is that sense of curiosity, because otherwise we can fall into creating the same story where we are this person who is maybe being bullied, or people don't like me, or I've done something wrong and I'm just not good enough. And when we don't question those stories and we really believe that they're true, we can start to show up as if they are true. So we can start to move away from people, withdraw, maybe even be a little bit cold towards people because we think that that's what's happening to us. And that can create its own self-fulfilling prophecy, because if you're behaving like that, someone else is going to respond in the way that you originally thought. So it's always really, really good to question that thought first going off before you start to respond.
Yeah, and like something that we do a lot of here at Quiet Connections, first of all, is sharing the information that our thoughts are not reality. And then like one of the skills that like we quite often teach people is how they can learn to start questioning those thoughts and challenging those thoughts and asking themselves like, well, what am I missing? What is the story that I'm making up? What information have I misinterpreted?
And what part am I playing?
Yeah, really important question. And these are questions that you can ask yourself, and perhaps even spend some time like asking yourself that question, and then doing a bit of journaling, writing it down, seeing what comes up. Or it could be something that you ask yourself whilst doing another activity that you find enjoyable, and just paying attention to what, again, the answers that are coming up from within you, and just allowing yourself that chance to break the stories break those thought cycles.
Another thing that I think is really important to recognize is that confidence isn't something that we either have or don't have. Because I know that I used to really hold myself back and be like, oh, you know, when I feel confident, then I'll do this, then I'll be able to do that.
Yeah. Oh, I can recognize that as well. I was always waiting for the moment that I was just going to magically wake up one day and I wasn't going to feel the way that I was feeling. I wasn't going to feel like I was good enough. And I was just waiting for, like, you know, that day that it's going to be like, right now I can do all the things that I want to achieve. You know, and that's not the way things work.
Yeah. I thought it was just going to be like a flick of the switch and I would reach a certain age or a certain milestone, go to college, and I'd suddenly be like, okay, I feel like an adult now. I feel confident. But confidence doesn't come with adulthood. And I felt like a scared little girl throughout much of my 20s as well.
Yeah. Oh,
and
yeah.
It wasn't until I'd done an awful lot of work on myself that I suddenly realized I don't feel that way anymore. I don't feel like a scared little girl. And what I've come to realize is that confidence is partly about self-acceptance. And one real piece of this is, especially when we're more introverted, more quieter people naturally, we tend to think very lowly of ourselves and our quiet strengths. We need to recognize that there's a lot of value in being introverted, and we are equally as worthy as our extroverted counterparts.
Yeah, for sure.
And the second part of that is that confidence is very much about having the having trust that we have tools that we can use in challenging situations. And this includes, like you mentioned before, ways to recognize that our thinking might not be correct and just to get really curious about that. Ways to manage ourselves when we go into that fight or flight response, which, if we feel socially anxious, that's happening an awful lot to us and we probably don't even know it. And maybe ways to start conversations, to have difficult, tough conversations with people, to share our opinions, and just learning a little bit about how to actually have those conversations and put across your opinions and create boundaries and say no, which all takes a lot of practice.
Yeah, and I was going to say, like, that for me feels like the most key part is that we need to recognize that these things don't, again, like, happen with the flick of a switch. It's about us learning, it's about us gradually developing those skills, and most importantly practicing them and taking them step by step, and doing that at the pace that feels right for you as an individual. What's coming to mind to me right now is that whole idea around, you know, so often, like, even on social media and stuff, like, we're getting the message that in order to, you know, learn these things, we have to kind of dive in at the deep end, that we have to throw ourselves into a situation that actually might be too far of a stretch for us. And what that does is that it often tends to then trigger that panic response within us, that fight or flight, to the point that kind of like it then reaffirms what we were originally believing about ourselves, that actually I can't do this, and then, you know, pushes us back into wanting to stay in our comfort zone, to wanting to stay in that safe space, to continue avoiding things, when actually the best approach to take is what we call a comfort zone stretch. So it's recognizing that in between the comfort zone and the panic zone is actually this learning zone. And if we take tiny little steps, make these little stretches, think of it as in terms of, like, you exercising your muscles, and, you know, you wouldn't wake up one day and go and run a marathon. You would train for quite a long period of time usually. And it's the same approach that we need to take when it comes to doing things that are out of our comfort zone, that feel uncomfortable to us, that we are experiencing some anxiety around, and breaking it down into manageable steps that, you know, are still uncomfortable to some degree, but feel enough to be able to be like, I can access some courage, the courage that is within me, to be able to take that first little step, and then I'm going to build upon it, and I'm going to keep doing that until I reach the big end goal that would have originally been in the panic zone.
Yes, yeah, perfect. I really like that. And I think it's really important to recognize that we all do have that courage inside of us. And even though we feel anxious, we can feel and be courageous at exactly the same time.
Yeah.
Now, one of the situations that is probably feels the hardest to achieve this is presentations at college. Because we are really thrown in the deep end, and a lot of the teachers just don't understand social anxiety at all. And we've been to Cornwall College, and we've done some training with student liaison officers, and we found that when people can get into the mindset of someone who's feeling very anxious in social situations, they can really empathise, but they might not automatically get there by themselves. They might need a bit of information about it first. So one thing that you can do in order to gently stretch your comfort zone when it comes to presentations is practice as much as possible by yourself. Try to create a friendly audience for yourself before you have to do the presentations. If that is like, start with one person, a comfortable person, or even start with like an audience of teddies or something, and imagine that they're people.
Just thinking teddies, like, as embarrassing as that might sound, like, it's, you know, that there's still that sense of like feeling as though people are watching you, so that can be a really, really safe way to start doing it.
Yeah, that might be the very first step if you're feeling really anxious about presentations. And then what we would love to see is being able to work your way up to doing presentations in just a group of you, and then maybe doing presentations as a group to the class, and then finally getting to a stage when you are doing a presentation on your own. Now, this isn't always possible in the classroom setup, but you can create little moments where you can be gently stretching your comfort zone in this way for yourself and with your group of friends. And even if you feel reluctant to share how you feel with your group of friends, remember that 50% of them probably feel really afraid about doing presentations too. So half of them are going to be extremely grateful to have this opportunity to practice and have a go before they get to the real thing.
Yeah, and this is something that both myself and Hayley have personally done, and you know, like a few years ago, even I think it was, probably about 4 years ago, and we, like, when I first met Hayley, we were on like a business course, and we had this workshop in like projecting professional confidence or something like that. And in it, like, there was it was kind of sprung on us that we were going to get up and do like a 3-minute presentation, and I completely froze. And if I remember correctly, I ran back to my seat halfway through and almost I was just in complete panic mode. And the reason why, like, in this workshop we were doing this was because in like 7 months' time, we were going to have to, like, each one of us, like, on this course was going to have to do this presentation in front of like 100 people at the Eden Project. And the thought of doing that was just terrifying for me. I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this. So actually, like, part of the process of leading up to that was, you know, doing these small practice presentations with Hayley and a few other people, having that safe space to go up and to practice speaking in front of other people, and to not have to worry about, like, if I stumble over words or anything like that, because it was a safe practice space. And, like, for me, this is like a huge key word, is practice. Everything's about practice. But then to also have that encouraging feedback from other people as well. What essentially happened was, doing that over the course of like a couple of months, when it came to doing the the actual presentation at the event in front of like a room of like 100 people that I didn't know, I was able to stand up there, and I had felt like the most calmest that I'd ever felt whilst doing a presentation like in my life. And I remember my legs weren't shaking, like they were nice and still. I remember being able to like hold my head up and look around the room and actually even make some eye contact with people, and it made such a huge difference to me. And then actually after, because my mum and my partner came to watch it as well, they both said to me like, I'm really surprised that you were able to do that. And I was like, what do you mean? And they were like, I'm more than certain that like you were going to get up there and just fall to pieces. And I was like, well, I've been practicing over the last like couple of months. And it made such a huge difference. So it really is a valuable tool and thing to do.
Absolutely. And how many people did you speak to recently on that webinar, Stacey?
Yeah, and then recently, a couple of months ago, went live on a online webinar, and I didn't actually know this beforehand, but I did find out afterwards that there was 4,000 people watching. And you know, these are really important things to acknowledge, that actually you know, although you might be feeling as if you're never going to be able to speak in front of people, whether that is like a small group of people, like, you know, going out for drinks or something, or it's doing a presentation, or perhaps some point later on down the line, like when you're working towards a career and perhaps you've got to do some public speaking or even like an interview. Like if you're currently in that position of feeling like I'm never going to be able to do that, I really want you to know that like I also felt that way. So did Hayley. And yet now, because of like the work that we've done, because of all these steps that we've taken and the things that we've practiced, both of us are, you know, publicly speaking on a regular basis. And
Yeah.
it's become something that, yeah, still feels scary, still feels a little bit nerve-wracking. But it's also something that we acknowledge that it's okay to feel that way, and yet we are still able to show up and do it.
Yeah, that anxiety only makes us human. And when it's something that's important to us, like taking a course at college, we really want to pass it, we want to do well in our careers, then it's absolutely normal to feel anxious.
And I think, yeah, having that compassion towards ourselves is really important. And also just to recognize that there is hope with that actually, you know, things can change for you and you can hold on to that.
So on that note, let's talk a little bit about what support you can get for yourself when you feel like this. So what we're going to do is put our student resource pack onto our website so that you can download it and you can access a number of really simple techniques that you can start implementing today. Things that are going to really help you to tweak your mindset and just change the way that your body is responding. And of course, it takes time for it to have a longer term impact. So these are things that you want to be using on a consistent basis. That's one thing that you can do. There's other books and blogs that you can read, and there's an awful lot that you can get on a self-help basis. So at what point do you want to start looking for professional support? Because a lot of people will say, oh, I'm not bad enough, or oh, someone else needs that support more than me. And we do tend to think that we don't deserve that help.
Yeah, I've definitely felt that way. And I hear a lot of clients saying that as well.
So at Quiet Connections, we work with people on a one-to-one basis, offering coaching. And at the moment in Cornwall, you can access that support for free if you are unemployed, even if you're a student. And you can do this by going through the Positive People program. Mm-hmm. And you'll find a link on our website to get some more information about this. So we're a specialist provider on the Positive People program. So although we don't actually run the program, they refer people to us. for coaching support to help them with social anxiety, growing confidence, and just learning to accept ourselves a little bit more and show up and be seen with a little bit more courage.
Yeah. And then another thing that we are running on a monthly basis is we host a free webinar that you're more than welcome to attend to. And in this webinar, we talk a lot more in depth as to what social anxiety is, where it's coming from, what is actually going on beneath the surface, and we start looking at the theory of change. So how we can start approaching making those changes in our life so that they're in alignment with who we actually are, that it's not about us changing who we are in order to fit in. It's about us changing how we're responding and how we're reacting to situations in order to actually recognize that we already belong.
And the other way is to download the Quiet Connections app. So we have an app that has some free features and some premium features, and in it you'll find some advice and hints and tips and conversation starters, and you'll even find a mini course to help you with the very basics to manage that anxiety and feel a little bit more confident.
Oh yeah, and that would be a great course to kind of start with. And also on our app, you will find a community group where you can connect with other people who are also feeling the same as you are. And that's a really nice safe space for us to kind of talk about anything that you might be feeling worried about or feeling anxious about, as well as an opportunity for you to just share aspects of what you enjoy and what your interests are, and experience that sense of commonality with other people, and to recognize that actually like you have a lot to bring to the table. Yeah.
We really want you to feel like you are not alone in this, and we are with you.
Yeah, every step of the way. So just to reiterate what our website is, in case you missed that, it's www.quietconnections.co.uk, and that's where you'll find all these free resources.
So even if social anxiety is, even if it feels mild to you, if it's impacting your life in any way at all, I would suggest going to get that support. For me, I wish I had that support when I was at college, because honestly, it got a little bit harder for me when I left college, and I was then had the option of going to university or going to work, and both of those were really terrifying. So now is definitely the time to get that support, to learn a little bit more about what's happening for you and those ways that you can manage the anxiety and feel more confident in yourself. Thank you for listening, and stay connected.
Thanks for listening. You can find the show notes from this episode at quietconnections.co.uk. Claim your free gift now at quietconnections.co.uk/free gifts.
With gratitude for the support of the National Lottery Community Fund.